Hey everybody, welcome to the Ballet Rising videocast. Today we have a really special guest from my home state of Utah. She's a soloist with Ballet West and the host of the Chelsea Keefer Podcast. Let's welcome Chelsea Keefer. And here we are, we're with Chelsea Keefer from Utah. How's it going?
I'm doing great. How are you, Casey?
Yeah, good. These are a bit
Yeah.
times, but I think we're all kind of hanging in there.
Yes, definitely. It's been an interesting week, couple weeks, I should
For
say.
sure. So, tell us a little bit about yourself. You're a dancer with Ballet West, but you also have a really cool podcast that I had the privilege of joining in
Yes.
on a podcast. It was really fun. So, how long have you been with? Let's go back. You're from Utah. Which part of Utah?
I'm from Huntsville, Utah.
Okay.
Yes.
And,
It's about an hour north of Salt Lake.
nice. I don't think I've ever been there, but as you can see, I'm all ready with my
Yep.
jazz hat on. I take this with me around the world, and everyone's like, "Hey, there's a jazz fan."
Right.
And you're a dancer with Ballet West. How long have you been with the company there?
I've been with the company about 6 seasons now. I became a soloist about 2 seasons ago.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and so I've been back in my home state for the past 7 years, and it's been, great to come back. I finished my Bachelor's of Science in Human Development in 2017. I've got a yoga certification, so I've kind of was trying to figure out ways how I could tie yoga, ballet, and a bachelor's degree all together, and I've kind of landed on the podcast.
Oh, that's cool. But you studied,
Yeah,
you went to university where?
the University of Utah.
Oh, okay. And
Yes.
then you
Yeah.
also danced somewhere else as well, right?
Yes, I was with I used to tour with Aspen Santa Fe Ballet for their Nutcracker when I was about 16 to 18, and then I joined Tulsa Ballet for 3 seasons after that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So you haven't been a soloist for very long, only 2 seasons.
Yeah, 2 seasons.
Nice. Okay, so you're really moving up. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, I saw some cool
But
pictures of you on Facebook the other day doing, I think it was Apollo.
yes, Polyhymnia.
I
Yes,
love that ballet. I think that's the only
me too.
ballet in my entire career that I've always wanted to do that I didn't get to do. That's the only one.
Really?
Yeah, that was
Oh man.
right at the end, right before I retired. The Dutch National Ballet was doing it. It was my last season, and I was like, "Oh, can I do it? Can I do it?" And they were like, I was a bit out of shape. I was kind of ready to retire and be done with it. And I was like, "Oh, maybe I'll get really, really into shape for one more ballet." Yeah, I love that ballet. I could watch it 1,000 times. It was I learned
Same.
it at Pacific Northwest Ballet, but never got to perform it. I thought it was really fun to dance and watch and everything.
I agree. Yeah, I learned it at a Tulsa Ballet, and then I got to perform it this past season, which was such a dream come true.
Cool. Yeah, you guys, what were you supposed to be performing right now?
So we would be rehearsing for Niccolo Fonte's Bolero and The Dream by Ashton.
Okay.
Yeah, so we wouldn't be doing that until I think April 15th was our performance date. And now we have postponed it until June 15th. We're still hoping to do our National Choreographic Festival in May, but we actually had to cancel the companies that were going to be joining us, which was National Ballet of China and the New Zealand Ballet.
Oh,
so
that's right. I forgot Royal New Zealand Ballet was going to be coming up to Utah because, I danced with them a while ago. Lots of really good friends down there in New Zealand. And when I heard that they were going to be in Utah, I was like, oh, I should go out there and with Ballet West and Royal New Zealand Ballet in Salt Lake City. I completely forgot about that. That's bad.
I know. Yeah. So right now we're trying to figure out how to maybe turn it into more of like an arts festival for all the art communities within Salt Lake, the opera, RDT, Riley Woodbury, SALT, Utah Opera, the symphony, we're trying to figure out if we can turn that into something. But I mean, who knows? This virus has really taken a huge toll on countries, and I think the United States is really not, they're starting to get a grasp of it, but I think we're pretty far behind. We saw what happened with Italy. So.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's been way behind the curve on fighting this thing.
Yeah.
China took forever. I mean, fortunately, they did really jump out and start doing something about it later. But I mean, Europe's been behind the curve on it.
Right.
US is the same. It's just nobody realized what this was really going to be before it was really on top of us. But before we get into that a little bit too much, how long have you been doing your podcast now?
It was a year this week, actually.
Yeah.
I started it on March 15th of last year. And it's been a really fun endeavor. This year, now that I have all this time off, I'm going to be figuring out how to enhance it, change some of the music around, get more people to write reviews, to subscribe. This past year was really just seeing if I could continue it while being a full-time dancer, and also getting enough interviews. I really wasn't sure if I could get people to sign up and be like, yeah, let's dive into something that's like kind of a hard topic, Yeah.
It is surprising though how many people really want to talk though. I mean, I'm supposed to be, for Ballet Rising, we want to be doing these video casts, and we wanted to do it on location. So we did one down in Brazil, and then we're hoping to do more of them around the world. Obviously right now it's a bit difficult for doing that kind of stuff. So I just sent out emails a few days ago, and a lot of people replied. They were like, yeah, let's do it. Let's talk about art and coronavirus. Especially since a lot of people are sort of self-isolating now as well. People are consuming a lot of web content. People have a little bit of extra time and things like that. But no, I really enjoyed your podcast. I first heard the episode that, like I told you, with Sasha Radetsky, and then I did listen to a couple of sections of some other ones, and it's a fun podcast. You're a really good speaker. You're a great conversationalist, and now I'm testing out my own skills in that area. So we'll see how it goes.
Well, you're doing great. You're doing great.
We're getting there. But no, I think things are really kind of the future. If you listen to some of the top investors in Silicon Valley, like Andreessen Horowitz and stuff, they're planning on an audio first future. So they're diverse. They're investing in a lot of startups that are pushing like podcasts and all sorts of audio first types of technologies and interactions and things. So I think there's a big future in it, and hopefully it'll continue for you. But like I said, it's a great podcast.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, let's talk about Utah a little bit. What's happening there as far as the coronavirus is concerned, or the United States, or just in general?
Right. Well, we had our first few cases about 2 weeks ago, and that number is up to like 79 now, I believe. And we started out with 2 cases, and it's just been doubling or tripling every couple days. We had an earthquake 2 days ago, and then we had one this morning again.
Another one. Wow.
Yeah. I actually looked it up because I wasn't sure. It felt like aftershocks, and I'm up in Huntsville, an hour north of Salt Lake, and the one on Wednesday was a 5.7, and that hit like everywhere. Like my parents felt the earthquake, and then even down south past Provo, people felt the earthquake.
Yeah.
And then the one this morning was a 2.9, which I felt some of the aftershocks of.
But pretty big. I mean, I've been in some 5.0s, a couple of 6.0s as well, and you feel it.
Right.
You really.
Oh yeah, and we had about 60 aftershocks that day on Wednesday.
Yeah. My family were doing stuff all day long, and I saw it, and it's just like, everybody was just like, what now? We're trying to self-isolate, we're trying to fight this disease, and all of a sudden, boom, we get smashed with an earthquake.
Right. Yeah. And I guess something happened at, Kennecott, where they were doing all that digging. There was some sort of chemical that was released in the air from Kennecott that they were just like, they're like, what are we going to do about this now?
Oh, yeah. Kennecott is a big mining mean, it takes up half the Ochre Mountain Range. It seems like it's one of the biggest open pit copper mines in the world. I think it used to be the biggest open pit copper mine in the world.
Yeah.
They also mine a lot of gold and stuff like that. Yeah, it's massive.
Yep.
Wow.
But with the virus, I would say that Utah's doing pretty well. I'm on an interview. Can you please leave? Thanks, Dad. Sorry. He's like, you want to go on a hike?
Sure.
Oh my gosh.
Hey, lucky you're biking. I mean, a lot of us are stuck in these big urban cities. I mean, I love big urban cities, but there are rare occasions like this where it's like, man, I wish I had a house in the country up in the mountains of Utah or something like that.
Yeah, so true. Hang on, let me plug my phone in. But yeah, so with the virus this week in Utah specifically, we have the highest amount of hoarders. I don't know if you saw that the percentages across the states, but we were at like 261% with people hoarding food, toilet paper. Yeah, it got pretty crazy. I mean, I was going to, having to go to a couple of different stores to just get certain cleaning supplies, or, there's no canned goods. All the toilet paper has been gone. Yeah. And,
I just got toilet paper yesterday, by the way.
Nice.
The stores have been empty of toilet paper for like a week, almost 2 weeks now, and I saw it in the store. I was like, oh my gosh, get it! That was cool. I got just a few rolls. I was like, I don't hoard.
Right, exactly. I know, it's like, just take a shower, people. You have water.
I mean, but it makes a lot of sense. I mean, growing up in Utah, all I ever heard was be prepared, be prepared. People really prepare themselves for natural disasters, for big economic disasters. People that really prepare themselves, and it's sort of ingrained in you. I was prepared way before most of the other people were here in Amsterdam. I was stocking up on food 2 weeks before everything hit the fan here. It's kind of our culture, which is a good thing and a bad thing. I mean, we should be prepared to be hoarding as well. It's really bad for those people. Like my mom is disabled, and she has a really hard time getting those things. And so for people like that, it's really, really not cool.
It's so true. I agree. I mean, I have friends that have pretty intense autoimmune deficiencies, and so they are literally locked up in their homes and can't leave their house. And so, I've been reaching out to them, do you need me to go to the store for you? What do you need, type of a thing. I mean, they don't even want to walk outside, and it causes a lot of anxiety.
A lot.
I mean, I'd say for most people, we're all experiencing intense anxiety right now, just because we don't know what's going to be happening with our workspaces, and if we'll be able to go back to work because of the career we're in. We are constantly touching each other, and this virus can live up to 3 days on people, and it attacks everybody's immune system differently, and you could have different symptoms. And I think that's the scary thing about it is, they were saying in a certain part of China, people were having symptoms of like gastrointestinal issues, and they were going in treated for that when they actually had been positive with the virus. And then all of those people had gotten infected with the virus. So the symptoms are still being figured out, which is very scary, because you're like, well, crap, do I have it? Like, I've got little things here and there. I mean, the common symptoms are dry cough, fever, but they're saying heart issues, intestinal issues.
Yeah, so. It seems to be changing by the day. I mean, I heard something really disturbing, and I don't know if it's true. I mean, there's a lot of misinformation out there, but I heard that a lot of the people that were recovering from in China from it were still weeks after they recovered, still didn't have 20 to 30% of their respiratory ability.
It's true. It's true. Well, and your lungs are just. I watched this Cutson, this guy. He's a scientist, but I'll have to send you, and you can maybe post a link to what he's been saying about the virus. He's a very educated being, and kind of would take in what he says.
Yeah.
But he was saying after this virus attacks your immune system and attacks your lungs, your antibodies are going to struggle. Like, you're going to come out of this different and weaker, and you're going to be more susceptible to potentially, you know, getting it again. I mean, we don't know if you can get it again. I mean, who knows where we're at right now.
There's some reports of people relapsing and getting it again as well, which is shocking. I mean, our viruses don't normally work like that. So if that's the case, that's really frightening. I mean, yeah, we all have to like verify all of these things and really learn about it. And even the scientists and doctors are still learning about it, you know, how it's transmitted and everything. It's just, you know, better safe than sorry. I think it's great that everybody's just really taking a lot of precaution and doing what we're doing. But yeah, the anxiety is going to be big. I mean, there's, first of all, the virus itself, which is quite scary. But then the biggest thing, which I really want to talk to a lot of artists around the world about and really sort of discuss how we can handle this situation, is the economic fallout from all of it. I mean, that's really frightening. Just so many people potentially losing their jobs and theaters going under and everything. I mean, as it always does in an economic crisis, you know, arts and poor people suffer the most. So yeah,
it's been interesting to hear how Ballet West has been trying to navigate it. I think they're doing an okay job, but I think we need to be looking at this as a little bit more long term. I mean, San Francisco Ballet just closed their season, and I think I mean, AGMA is, you know, preparing to help artists as much as they can. We've got this, we're writing to the senators within our state and asking for funding. You know, we're trying to figure out ways of how to keep things going, you know, with the live streaming or even donation base. I volunteered yesterday and cold called a bunch of our donors, just reaching out and saying thank you for their support. So I think in that sense, they're trying to really take it on and make sure we're not going to have too many financial issues, but you really don't know what to prepare for. My biggest concern right now is our second company dancers across the country who are not on salary and cannot receive unemployment.
Yeah,
and
apparently that's true in a lot of states with a lot of companies. I mean, these junior companies are a great thing, but then there's circumstances that just like this that really might leave a lot of kids high and dry. That's really frightening.
It is. And you know, my dad was asking, because he wants to donate a little bit, and he's like, where should I send my money? Because I want it to be going to the dancers specifically. And I was like, honestly, you should just be Venmoing the dancers in the second company, because I mean, they're the ones that need help.
Yeah, straight to the source. I mean, you know, people are doing some creative things like that. I've seen a lot of fundraisers for dancers' salaries and things like that. And the cool thing too is that the companies and the theaters are totally supportive of it, you know. Just gotta have to figure out some really creative ways of managing this situation. But there's a lot of ideas out there. I mean, I was really excited and pleasantly surprised by the fact that a lot of theaters are streaming performances, not live performances, pre-recorded. Because I've been arguing for a long time that that ballet and, well, just theaters in general need to reach out to wider audiences. So I think that by itself is actually a blessing, and because I think in the future, I just think right now we're reaching out to so many different people. I mean, now that, you know, the Royal Opera House is streaming performances online, how many kids in Africa would have loved to have seen the Royal Ballet but could never afford a ticket to go to London? And but now they can watch it on their mobile phone, and it's like we're exposing so many people to our art form that in the long run, I think things like this are going to be much, much better for us. And
I agree.
We'll find new forms of revenue through it as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think, you know, there's a fear in some dancers that, like, you know, if we are going to do this live streaming, we should only do it for this amount of time, you know, which I think is fair to an extent, but at the same time, like, we are moving in a direction where this is available to everybody. And I think I honestly think it'll get more people to go to a show.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it's like,
yeah,
I think that's how we need to be moving, exactly like you just said.
Yeah, it is the future. As far as I'm concerned, it's the future. But we have to strike a balance, because I always compare it to sports. How many people stop going to the stadium because they can watch it on TV? Well, some do, but the stadiums are still packed.
Yes.
So I think theaters, it's not like you can live stream every single performance every night. I wouldn't recommend that, but some performances on rare occasions that allow people around the world, like I said, if somebody in Mongolia wants to say, hey, what's this Ballet West company all about? You can get online and watch it on your mobile phone. Now they know.
Right.
They see it, they're familiar with it. I think it just opens up ballet and opera companies and just theater companies to so much more exposure. And then it also makes them much more attractive to sponsors as well. I mean,
I agree.
You can only fit so many eyeballs in a theater at any given time. You can millions of people can potentially watch it across the internet. So we'll have to find a balance, but I think it's a great temporary solution, and I think it could be really cool for the future as well. Just have to see how it goes.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think people in the past have also been scared of doing that kind of stuff too, because like I said, they think, oh well, if people can watch it online, they won't go to the theater. But same with sports. When you watch it live, it's just so different. It's just so much more fascinating. So much more when you have somebody in front of you that you can, if you wanted to, you could reach out and touch them. Having somebody right in front of you is just a totally different experience, and you see the athleticism of athletes or dancers, and you feel when you're next to an opera singer. Have you ever performed with the opera?
No, I haven't.
I mean, you watch.
Well, actually, our Carmina Burana, we had opera singers. So yes, I have. Actually.
Yeah. I mean, so you hear it on the computer, you hear it on the radio, you hear the music, but when you're right next to that person and their voice is actually reverberating within your own chest because they're so powerful, it's just such an incredible experience. So I don't think that streaming performances will ever compete with seeing something live. I mean, we always have to remember that we're live theater, we're live performance. That's our bread and butter. That's what we do. But we can also reach much wider audiences as well.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, that feeling you get from seeing a live show is so different than from watching it online. And I actually just did my first nonprofit event. I was the creative director for this nonprofit called One Small Miracle in Salt Lake that helps people within the service industry. Cool. And so, people within the bars, restaurant scene who are injured on the job or, injured and they can't afford insurance. And so this nonprofit will help you pay your rent, help you pay your medical bills. The founder had actually quite a story where he had experienced a stroke and just had all these insane medical bills and was trying to start a business and all of these things. And he's just like, this is just unfair. We need to be able to support people within these industries who really, we cater to the people who come into our restaurants and bars. Like that is such a therapeutic experience that a lot of us, bystanders or, beings go into these places and don't really take in and appreciate of all the work that they're doing. So Matt Full, he's the founder of the nonprofit. I've been obsessing over metamorphosis and what metamorphosis means to me this past year, and just how as beings we can have certain attachments to emotions and how we can move through those emotions. It's not the end all whenever we're experiencing something. And as we are as artists, like when we're performing a certain role, we have to dive into that artistry and then we come out of it. It's like it's a phase. It's always going to be a phase. But I focused the evening off of metamorphosis, and I had 6 dancers throughout the Salt Lake community, not just ballet dancers. I had people from RDT, a crump artist, and then I had like a girl with like butterfly wings, kind of like a circus type of a thing. And then I had 6 live musicians. I had a harpist, cellist, violinist, synth player, guitar player, and pianist.
Nice.
And we did it at the McCune Mansion. Do you know the McCune? It's the first $1 million home in Salt Lake. It was built in 1901.
Wow. That's cool.
So it's super cool. It's super like grandiose, like gold leafing and scagliola and like a massive ballroom, you know?
Okay.
And it was cool because I based it off of the 6 emotions, and I had the dancers basically acting like audience members. And then all of a sudden they would filter into the space and dance, and then they would guide people into the next room. And so it was very much like a very vulnerable, close, intimate experience to where you were actually touching the audience members and getting them to kind of experience something a little deeper. And it was cool because the cohort that was attending the evening was mostly 30 to 40-year-olds. And that's kind of hard to see in a ballet, right? Like when you go to the ballet, you usually have an older audience base. But it was really cool to have that experience. And I know that like from that, people are going to be like, wow, I want to go to the ballet now, or I want to see what happens next year with this nonprofit, you know?
Yeah. That's a great introductory for people to just sort of introduce them, but just giving them that sort of intimate experience really is a great thing. And it serves the arts in general so well. And it's great to see so many dancers nowadays. When I was growing up and just starting out, dancers didn't really do these kinds of things. We just kind of did ballet and very proactive sort of business-wise, or just being proactive in communities very much. It seems like this is a real fairly recent thing. You see a lot of dancers doing really entrepreneurial things, starting interesting businesses around ballet and dance, but also just being really creative about getting out into the community and connecting with newer audiences and just sort of introducing them to not just ballet, but art in general. And it's really, really cool to see. I kind of wish that my generation had done a lot more of that. You know, we just kind of did ballet and that's all we did, really. Yeah. Which was great. It was fun. We loved ballet, but you know, just now that I'm older and I'm retired, I'm just seeing so many ways we can step outside of our area and expose so many different people to art and things like that in different ways. I mean, the generation is so much more creative, I think, and just outgoing. It seems like really cool.
Yeah, right. And it's really cool to see. You know, it's been interesting watching everybody during these past 2 weeks of quarantine. I love that people are giving ballet classes online. I mean, like Tamara Rojo is like doing like a, you know, offered a class. I was like, dang, I'm going to take a class from her, you know, which is so cool.
She's hardcore. I love that woman. Great. It's just straight to the point every time. She's a really nice person, but just, you know, bam, right to it. She's just hardcore.
I love that.
I don't know how somebody directs a company and is a full-time ballerina at the same time. I will never.
I know.
You know, she's just, gosh, she's all work, man. All work.
Yeah. That's amazing. But, you know, a part of me was a little bit worried, and it's a conversation I'm actually going to have on my podcast about dancers in this phase of quarantine, because there are so many of us that will have a hard time finding those other hobbies or other things to do. And it's like ballet is their one thing. And so I'm a little bit worried about, you know, people's mental states during this time. How are they going to entertain themselves, you know?
Yeah.
Because yes, you can do ballet class every day, but like, what else are you doing to entertain yourself? How are you staying creative? I mean, I just ordered myself a keyboard, so I'm going to learn the piano.
Hey, cool. But it's great. You know, I was one of the few people, I didn't have big initiatives and things like that, but I always had a ton of hobbies all throughout my dance career. I loved architecture and history and, you know, so many things, photography, and having those outlets really gave me a totally different perspective of ballet. Yeah. And I could pull so many different experiences and pieces of knowledge from that outlet stuff into my career. So I think this will be kind of cool, you know, just get a bunch of dancers, get them really bored, and then they come up with some creative ideas and learn new things, and then they can pull that into their career, and it really enhances your stage presence or your acting or your musicality or your technique. You know, there's just so many different aspects to dance that I think in the end, this is, here's another area that I think is going to be a really good thing in the long run for the arts.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how people continue to create online, you know, these next couple of weeks, and just what comes of it in the end.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So as far as like the state of Utah or the US government, I'm hearing a lot of stuff about stimulus, about things going on. Is the state of Utah planning anything in particular for the arts community, or has there been any conversations about what's happening?
I haven't really heard too much towards the arts community. I mean, Trump had made a statement about giving like a one-time $2,000 to people, which I don't know if that's still true. I've seen people post, you know, about helping people within the restaurants and local businesses, like donating towards them. Ballet West posted a, you know, support type of a, you know, donate to Ballet West. But I honestly don't really know how our state is handling it. I think our governor is trying to figure it out right now, in the sense of keeping, I had heard like something about rent, to where they were gonna like postpone rent and help people in those situations who couldn't afford their apartments. Yeah, but I don't know where we're at right now. It seems like it's kind of been up in the air.
Seems like Utah is somewhat, yeah, I mean, Utah's always been a very proactive state, especially economically. I mean, Utah is always very stable in the economic area. I did watch an interview with Governor Levitt yesterday on Al Jazeera, and Utah was several steps ahead of the game in comparison to the rest of the United States with fighting the coronavirus. And like always, I think there'll be a few steps ahead of the game when it comes to helping the state recover as well from the fallout. I just hope that there's something that can really help the arts community as well. I mean, the Utah arts community is quite special. You know, people are familiar with the state of Utah and mountains, skiing, okay, great, desert. You know, they don't realize that actually there's a really impressive ballet company and opera company there as well. Symphony orchestra there is phenomenal. I mean, great art museums. It's an incredibly cultural state, you know, that people don't really equate, you know. But it's impressive there. So I hope that can really continue, and that the community there the arts community can get through this. But
I agree. Yeah, I'm curious to see what the plan is. I know they've been working on building some shelters, or opening up spaces for shelters for people. But yeah, I haven't really heard too much about the arts yet. It seems like it's been an ongoing conversation. Our CEO, Michael Scolomiro, has been great about staying in contact with us. He's been emailing us almost every day, and so has Adam.
Cool.
Just, you know, keeping on top of it. And we had to actually close down the building because of the earthquakes.
Well, the Capitol was just recently renovated, right?
Yeah, it was.
Did they use retrofitting for seismic activity, or was it just like cosmetic stuff?
It was mostly cosmetic. They had redone all the seating on the inside, and then on the outside they were, you know, fixing up the gargoyles.
Don't lose those gargoyles. I think they did some type of major seismic upgrade. I think when I was leaving, I moved to Salt Lake City in 1994, and they were doing something at that time, because apparently the building was built in 1901 or something. So not the best earthquake standards there, but yeah, I mean, hopefully the building will be fine. It's such a gorgeous building, and now with that expansion on the side, I think when I met you, it was a couple of years ago when I met you outside the Capitol Theater. I was going in to just explore and check out the new expansion on the side of it. It was so cool. I'd never seen it before. I mean, when I left Salt Lake City, it was just kind of a cute little theater there with a little teeny Marie Callender's restaurant on the side.
That's right. Oh my gosh.
Now it's really become quite an area, and it's a gorgeous theater, but now to have this facility, the ballet facilities on the side attached to the theater is really nice. I mean, I'm used to it here in Europe. All the opera ballet companies, they're all inside the opera house. In the United States, it's quite unusual to have a ballet company and inside the opera house like that. It feels very European, which is really nice. You can kind of warm up in the studio upstairs and then run downstairs and go on stage. It's like
so true. So true. Yeah, I think it's been so nice being in that space. It's been interesting to see it like settle into the ground, you know, because it takes a while for a building to kind of like get its full foundation. We've had some like piping issues and like water leaks, you know, and then we've been trying to figure out the fire alarm. Oh my gosh, there's been so many times when the fire alarm has just been going off. And we've had to exit the building and come back in, which has been a trip. You know, it's always a great story.
In Seattle when we renovated the Opera House, McCaw Hall up in Seattle, and you know, our premiere, our first performance in the new Opera House in Seattle, we were doing a brand new production of Swan Lake, and the power went out in the middle of the first act, and all the just work lights came up, so the audience was dark, and the work lights came up on stage. And the orchestra was kind of half continuing playing, and we were kind of half dancing, like, should we continue? I mean, new building.
Oh my gosh.
You gotta break them in slow.
Yeah, right. I know that actually happened to us this past fall after the renovation. There was something with the audio system to where it stopped working, and then it did that like big ringing sound. And we were doing the Le Chant des Rossignols, George Balanchine's first ballet.
Wow.
Which was a USA premiere. It had been done in Monaco in like, I think like 65 or something. But like this ballet was like done in like it was like over 100 years. It was like 1923 or something.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And so we were doing this ballet, and like it just is like ringing, and all of us are like, do we keep going? And it's like these crazy like kind of like Vogue style movements, and just like what the
kind of love those. Nobody knows what to do, so you're like, keep going. Yes, kind of.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Oh, it's live theater, people. It's live theater.
Yeah.
Exactly. Never know what you're gonna get.
Yeah. True.
Well, cool. I guess, do you have anything you'd like to say? I mean, we're trying to broadcast artists around the world, let them know what you're thinking, how you're feeling.
Yeah, I mean, it's been interesting. I don't think I mentioned this yet, but we had 2 dancers actually in Ballet West test positive with COVID.
Oh, wow.
And it was interesting to see people's responses to it on social media within the immediate company. I think it was a little insensitive. And so I think for everybody to be aware that like this is going to be hitting closer to home than you think around the world. You know, you're going to have connections to people that will be testing positive. And I think it's important that you continue to show support and love and offer help in any way that you can. Those coworkers of mine, when I found out, I FaceTimed them and I was like, hey, you know, like, I'm here for you. What do you need? You know, and I think they really appreciated that, because people get scared during this time and they start to act off of their animalistic behaviors, and they don't show their sense of support to one another within a community. And I think that's something we need to continue to stay aware of within ourselves, is how can you be on your best behavior, you know, at home when you're home with your family or your partner, or how can you be on your best behavior on social media? You know, this is a moment for all of us to grow and be a better person. And that's something
that's so true.
We all need to do.
So true. I mean, in the beginning, people were kind of, you know, you heard this racist things happening against Chinese people, you know, because they were like, oh, the Chinese, they might have the virus. Now it's bigger outside of China than it was in China. So you never know
right.
who's going to get it. We all have to stick together. We all have to support each other. And yeah, exactly what you said. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being on the video cast, and I stay healthy and stay strong, and looking forward to talking again, and hopefully I'll see you in Salt Lake City at some point.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much, Casey. And, you know, stay healthy, stay at home, and keep entertaining yourself, you know, stay creative.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, thanks so much. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Ciao.